so it's going to be in my recliner next to the air conditioning. Apologize for the noise.
This is fine.
Well, greetings everyone from my humble abode here in the living room. As you saw, it was quite a doozy trying to work back there. So we got ourselves some Ventoy, and I decided to scrap the Ubuntu video that I was working on, just because I think Ubuntu needs more time in the oven. And I'd really like to give a positive video in some way. Right now, I mean, if you want to see it, let me know in the comments. But right now, it'd just be the unhinged Ubuntu version. It was a really negative experience. In fact, I took Ubuntu off everything I had as a result. I'm gonna wait till the .1 release. We'll come back and we'll do a fair review. As a result, I'm kind of delaying my Fedora video. I wanted something a little bit easy to do right now because there's a lot going on in my life, a lot of stress, work, and so I decided to do PopOS. Now, PopOS is gonna get 2 videos this year because I want to do a pre-cosmic and a post-cosmic PopOS. It's important to me to do that because the current PopOS offering is GNOME. And so we're going to get into that here in a little bit. The Force graphics card and would be a perfect example of why PopOS is a really great distribution because they have a pre-packaged NVIDIA ISO. So in this case, I am using a USB device that I'll refer to as Ventoy. Ventoy could be its entire separate video, but let me go to the save with here. It is its own device that on it I can put as many ISOs as I want, and it will boot them as if it's one USB stick with many distros on it. Fantastic if you want to play around with Linux. So I will scroll down here to the PopOS NVIDIA version. Now it is one version back, so there might be some updates. But I want the NVIDIA version to have the NVIDIA drivers, and we're going to install PopOS. So for this little part here, I'm going to try to capture some footage. Hopefully I can. Considering my capture card setup just isn't going to quite work for it. So one of the biggest things about PopOS is they're really good at having pre-enabled NVIDIA drivers out of the box. This laptop's NVIDIA card still gets the latest drivers. It'll run on the 550 drivers or 555, whatever the latest one happens to be, even though it's based on Ubuntu 2204. So PopOS likes to backport a lot of more modern packages to the Ubuntu platform, including newer kernels, newer graphic stacks, so on and so forth. In fact, right now, one of my favorite command line utilities, Nala, doesn't work because of the Python library problem. There are some people saying you can get around it by manually installing Python. I'd rather not get into that, so we'll just use apt for now. And apt is fine. Nala is just a prettier apt that does a lot of things that apt does, just easier. But if you're not going to use the terminal, which you don't have to, then you're pretty much set to go. But yes, one of the biggest things I like is they've got ZRAM enabled already, which is nice. It's RAM compression for devices that need that, which is 8 gigs of RAM. It might appreciate it. But also having the NVIDIA drivers pre-installed out of the box. I don't have to install nothing. Display scaling tends to also be pretty decent out of the box, but I've had issues on PopOS before. If I can grab the thing, you can see everything that went on in the installation. And so we're going to go ahead and we're going to shut this device down. I'm going to reboot the device, and then when I get back on, I'll drop back in for you. Gnomish like setup, except this bottom panel down here is a little bit different. Usually GNOME has the hidden panel and whatnot. Now, by default, they're going to ask us what kind of layout we'd like. They offer 3. And to be honest, this is probably the most wasteful one. I can get behind having no dock, but then the problem is when you go to access your applications, you got to go up here. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I can get behind the dock. you need somewhere to hold your apps. And if you're not going to have a panel do it, then you're going to need a dock to do it. I don't mind this layout, but it segregates that entirely off, and I don't necessarily care for it, but I've dealt with Mac before, so for that record, I'll prefer a dock. And they ask us, do we want workspaces? Do we want applications? I don't mind having those up there. Date and time, you can have it on the left. You can have it on the right. You can have it in the center. I'm going to leave it center. I would personally prefer it on the right because that changes the center layout and whatnot. But then there's like nothing up here. So I'm okay with it being in the center. And you can see, yeah, so if I open up this here, see if I start typing desktop, it'll show me different things. This is the pop launcher. This little yellow here can be customized here in this window. But if you're searching for a particular application, you know, such as OBS, it'll show you, oh, well, you got that open right now. That sort of thing. And you can use this, it'll show you your open windows, which is really handy. So if I like opened, per se, the Files app, and I'm busy, I can now see everything that's open. And then if I start typing files, it would show me that my home folder is open. It would also show me files and whatnot. If I typed like a star.mkv or mkv, it would show me the videos. JPEG. This is not a good one. But anyway, you can search any of the system settings in that, and it does work relatively well. I'll go ahead and whack this for a minute. They show the gestures, so you can use the Gnome gestures for navigation, so I can do this kind of cool stuff. It's actually one of the things I liked about PopOS is they really emphasize using multiple workspaces. I'm not that kind of a user, but I should be. Given how many, excuse me, take that again. I'm just not that kind of user, just by habit. I need to have better habits and use more workspaces when I have limited monitors. Normally, at my workstation, I have 2 monitors that are pretty good sized, but if I'm on a laptop like this, I might use it a little bit more. And you can choose your light or dark theme. They default to dark, which is the right answer. Their light theme isn't awful. It's a little more tasteful than most. I mean, I could even pull it up in a file manager. It's nice. They used to default to this. But like me, most of their users like dark mode, and so they've defaulted to dark mode. They do ask for location services, which I love it when distros actually ask you for this and don't just take it. Genuinely, I don't care if my computer is using location services, but you might, and so this needs to be asked to toggle it or toggle it off. Now, if I hit next, I'm in the New York time zone, so I'm just going to select that real quickly. Online accounts, I don't use this feature, but per se, if I wanted to use their built-in mail app, I wanted to have access to my Google account, I could just sign into my Google account, and boom, I now have my Google signed in to the email, to the calendar, so on and so forth. And that's the whole welcome setup. I appreciate it. It's simple, it gets out of the way, it does everything you need without overstaying the welcome. So for starters, we start down here in the dock. We've got the launcher, which you saw before. You have workspaces, so you can see the different workspaces and whatnot and grab apps. And you could also toggle it up here if you click on it up here. You've got the applications menu. This would have been the big GNOME overview, except they put it in a panel view like this. I like this because it's also super key A, for those that are wondering, or this little button up here in the corner. And, you know, it does a nice job of bifurcating things into folders. You can create a new folder if you really want to, and it'll pin across the bottom here. It's really nice. Really, really nice. And it's the defaults work pretty well in that regard. You've got apps like Geary and whatnot that's kind of their email app. Like they don't own it, but they ship it. I don't care for it. It's too basic. Like the app itself works pretty well. It's pretty amendable and whatnot, but it's too simple. I like having my email and calendar kind of wrapped together, which is why I'll install Thunderbird and, I'll do a longer road test of this thing, maybe in a few hours I can talk about my experience installing some updates and whatnot, which I haven't done yet. And of course they have, the basics, the GNOME terminal and whatnot. And even though it's dead, we can do a sudo apt install neofetch, because rest in peace neofetch. Somebody will come up with a better package at some point. All of my stuff's still set up to use neofetch, and really all neofetch is for nerds. And here you go. You can see I've got my NVIDIA GeForce, my Intel HD graphics, my CPU's a 5th Gen i7, and you can see I have 12 gigs of memory. You'll also notice they're using the 6.8 kernel already. 22.04 doesn't have access to the 6.8 kernel. PopOS is actually doing the work to backport that kernel to the operating system. 6.8 is actually what Ubuntu 24.04 is coming with. So it's really nice to see that they're putting in the extra effort to do that. You've got your little menu up here, this little pop-down menu. You got your floating tiling as well. This tiling's kind of cool. So if I pull up a couple apps, whoops, and say a Firefox, because why not? And I go ahead and hit this toggle and say tile windows. This gives you a really nice balance between a window manager and a desktop environment, because it gives you the auto tiling features you might want, but not that you can't toggle off. If I'm working here, I'm getting stuff done, and suddenly I don't need tiling right now, I can just go up and untile it. Or let's say I'm working like this and going, this is getting messy really quickly. Let's go in and go boom. You can specify floating exceptions. So you can set like physical examples and whatnot. You could select actual windows saying, hey, this application will always be floating. All kinds of cool stuff. And you could even go further than that. It doesn't have to be the same app. But, let's say I open another one of these windows and I want this one in this one. And does it not do that, or is it? It's going to want to do this differently, isn't it? Well, it's doing a lot of things. It's not doing quite what I expected. I was trying to show off. Yeah, it's not going to do it. They must have done something different, because usually you can like overlap the tabs. I'm only just doing a really poor job here. Anyway, you're supposed to be able to flick things inside things, so each of these groups could have tabs. It's really in depth and it is really cool. I'm guessing it's bugged out right now and maybe it'll work later. I don't know. But it is a feature. And I appreciate that. Now, I'm not much of a tiler, so I'll turn it off and we'll just close out all of these nonsense. Before we wrap it up, we got to talk about the software store. So the Pop Shop it's going to get replaced in the next PopOS because it's kind of buggy, kind of slow. And it's because it's based upon the elementary OS store, and it just hasn't aged as well as the rest of PopOS. And really the GNOME environment in general here. It does an okay job, but not groundbreaking. You can see how long this is taking to load. This is just normal. And sometimes it takes multiple times to launch it. Sometimes you can't launch it at all. Or it requires a reboot or something like that. And I can go ahead and pop this full screen. And it is quite lovely, but you can see it's a little laggy in the way it moves. But it's nice. I can go in here and pop open this information. Um, yeah, you can kind of see why. It's still pulling information and whatnot. So we've got some applications that are showing up down here. The one I like is the updates and software. It's in its own tab. And here it tells me all this software is up to date. But I have 230 operating system components. All this needs updated on my system, including the 550 driver even, and the NVIDIA binary and whatnot, systemd hardware, all kinds of good stuff. But it breaks it down for you when you click into the individual updates, what is being updated. And you just press update and it updates. So that's what I'm going to do. And that's actually where I'm going to wrap this video up. I'm going to use this for a little while. And the next video, I'm going to talk about PopOS in terms of gaming, productivity, and things like that. I'm going to try to get DaVinci Resolve working on here. That is an application I've been wanting to use, but I've never managed to get it working. So we're going to see if we can get it working. This thing's not a powerhouse, but she does okay. I don't have NVENC support and whatnot, but I can at least do video acceleration with that GeForce graphics. And it is capable of doing some light gaming, so we're going to take a look at a little bit of that. If you like the video, go ahead and like the video. And if you want to see more from the channel, just let me know in the comments what kind of stuff you guys are interested in. Right now, I'm just going through distros that I'm interested in. I wanted to get a hold of PopOS before they went through Cosmic, because this is a big shift. We're going from Gnome on X11 to their custom-built Cosmic on Wayland. It's going to be Wild Ride, and it should be by the end of the summer. If I remember to go through, there is one other thing. System 76 has a blog. They're all over the place. But in this blog, they really do talk about some really cool stuff. Like they're actually going to have ARM-powered devices, which is cool. Or at least they're going to have ARM support for 2404. Fantastic. There's going to be some devices out there, like the Raspberry Pi, that are going to be able to run PopOS just fine. The Cosmic App Store is coming. It genuinely, from what I've played with, is super fast. They're not exaggerating it. But they are really just building an entire desktop that didn't exist before from scratch, and doing their own thing. So, yeah, they've got a blog. They talk about things as they go along. They sell hardware. If you don't want to deal with installing your own Linux, you just go in here and say, oh, I want a new machine. And so then you just go find what you want. So, like, if I want something with really good battery life, I don't necessarily need um, super fast. I have choices. I like the idea behind a 14-inch here. So, okay, let's design and buy. The Darter Pro is one I've looked at before. They still offer Ubuntu. What a lot of people don't realize is that PopOS originally was just a slightly modified Ubuntu, because System 76 was selling these systems with Ubuntu on them long, long time ago. I would love to go into all that. Oh, 16 inch. Um, but yeah, like this one, I can configure a screen on it. It has a matte screen or 14 inch. I'm a 14-inch kind of guy for a laptop. 15 is a bit much. 15 is fine when you're getting work done. And if that's what I had this device for, I'd be okay with the 15-inch. If I'm just doing regular productivity, 14 is fine. 16 would be even bigger than what I have on my lap right now, and I would find that a bit much, but I don't mind that. But yeah, you got the Core Ultra 7. This is the Intel version. I'm not a huge fan of Intel, but like, it's fine. So actually, their base spec on this thing is actually pretty reasonable. $1,200, probably a bit much, but it's a 14 inch. You've got 14 cores with your Core Ultra 5. You've got 16 gigs of RAM, a 500 gig SSD. By default, it's got the 1 year warranty. I might be somebody who might spend extra on a few extra years of warranty, and then just boom, you're done. And so if I were buying this for myself, I might buy the 3 year warranty and put it up to $1,500. And I would be okay with that. Now, it's me. And I'll look at the specials here in a moment for myself personally. I would actually look at the Pangolin because it's AMD. It's also the workhorse. That would have you a Ryzen 7, 32 gigs of RAM. I would bump up the storage because it's me. I would bump up to 2 terabytes. Um, and I would just have one OS drive. It is hilarious that they will sell you a $1,600 SSD, but even $140 for 4 terabytes, like that's nice. I would still come in here and get me the 3 year, and yeah, so $1,600, and I have a pretty lit system. Not too shabby. I always come in to look at their specials too. Yeah, like the Darter Pro right now is because they got the new CPUs and stuff. The Darter is probably the one I would do. Like, I'm not gonna lie, it's probably the cleanest and whatnot. Um, yeah, my wife would appreciate the 16 because of the number keypad. I would appreciate the 14 because it's like, because it is what it is. But yeah, I think they do a really bang up job. And I think as a result, they end up with a really good product. So, like I said before, if you like the video, by all means, like, subscribe, turn on notifications if you really want to, although you don't have to. If you find this stuff entertaining, let me know what you'd like to see more in the comments down below. And with that, y'all have a good day.